will now continue with the program, with the panel discussion, moderated by Pieter Colpaert. We have more or less half an hour, and also from the audience, if you have questions, there will be room for questions to the panel. And also still use the hashtag. We have OSL2017. And also, if you're watching online, you can also post questions on Twitter, and we will try to answer them as much as possible. Peter?
Thank you very much, Dimitri. So, as a panel, what I would like to do, and this is like something very special, I've never done it before, so it's a first test case, is that I first would like everyone to think like a data publisher, and then in the middle of the panel we will say, stop, now we will think as a data consumer. So this is the first test, we will see how it goes. So first, I would like to that everyone just shortly introduces themselves, like says their name, their affiliation, and why they are in this panel. Good. Can we start with Pieter Jan?
Yeah. Hello to you all. I'm Pieter Jan Jordaens. I'm a mechanical engineer working at Ceres, and I'm responsible for OWI-Lab, which is actually a research development and innovation platform supporting offshore wind energy research.
Thank you very much.
I'm Iain Shepherd from the European Commission, and I'm responsible for trying to keep the EMODnet funding flowing. So
That's fine. Hi, I'm Pieter Jan Note, one of the founders of Project Mahi. We're actually building an autonomous vessel to do in situ measurements with a group of friends. So I think it's clear why we're here. Yeah.
Maybe you can quickly give a URL to everyone, to your project?
Yeah, so it's www.projectmahi.com. So everybody can have a look and already have an idea of what we're doing.
Hi, I'm Sara Garavelli from Trusted Services, and today I'm here representing the Horizon 2020 funded project BlueBridge, which delivers data services to the aquaculture sector, but also to the marine and maritime communities.
Hi, I'm Erik Laurijssen from Datylon. I'm the CEO. We're a team of 25 data visualization experts, and we help companies, enterprises communicate better with data.
Thank you very much. So there we go. Pieter Jan, I will first ask you a question. Like, as a data publisher, right? What does open data mean to you, and why on earth would you publish open data, and would you publish open data at all? That's maybe also a good question to you.
Maybe that's the first question for us, at least. We're working together with quite some Belgian offshore operators of wind farms and conducting in-field research measurements. But for us, it's not always able to publish open data. So we have a lot of data, and later I will show you some examples. But by contracts, we cannot just open them all up. Some of them we can open up, and we have some examples of that. And one of the examples I will present later, how open data can create new opportunities and new companies, for example, with respect to the blue energy opportunity or economy. But yeah, one has to say that certain critical data for an emerging sector, some companies don't want to open up all data because of a competitive advantage.
And that's the case for your company as well, or?
Well, we are a non-for-profit research organization, so we facilitate the data and use advanced algorithms to come up with process data and use application knowledge to gain insights, which can lead to cost reduction within the sector. For us, it's an enabler to conduct the research which we want to do, to have data for the researchers which they're seeking for. In our ideal world, we would have our own wind turbine somewhere in the North Sea, which is owned by ourselves and in which we can open up all data as a non-for-profit research center. But at this moment, this is...
Is there someone in the panel who owns their own sensors?
We will start to own some sensors. So
Maybe you
let's
take the other
one.
mic. Yeah.
So we don't have that many sensors yet. That's perhaps also one of the reasons why we're here.
It's on the autonomous boat,
It's
right?
on the autonomous boat, yes. So next year, let's say we're not yet a data publisher, but we will be one next year. When we do our voyage of the autonomous vessel across the ocean, and then we'll have some sensors on board and we'll transmit live data. So yeah, the idea is indeed that we also share the data we get or we measure during our voyage. We upload it to through a satellite link to a server and we display it on our website. So perhaps we can make some sort of a partnership with EMODnet and see what we can do to incorporate our data into their website.
You must be crazy. Why would you just upload that data to a website and just give it out for free?
Let's say there are a couple of reasons. One of the reasons I just said before, there can be a mutual partnership. We can also get something out of it's like I see open data, open source as a community. You put something in, you get something back. So we see this as an opportunity also to get some visibility for our project, because visibility means perhaps some additional sponsorship. So for us, the idea from the beginning was that we will upload all of the data we get and we'll see how far we get.
In each case, I hope I didn't give you the idea to keep it private.
No.
Okay, great. So is there someone else in the panel who has access to data that needs to be published and has different reason, or?
Yeah, and I can say a couple of words of what we do in BlueBridge. So in BlueBridge, we act more as a technological broker because we offer our users the possibility to create some environments, virtual environments, where they can access the data, they can share the data with their collaborators, and they can also publish the results. So in this sense, we are a bit a data publisher. And what we do, we encourage our users to share the data. And by data, we don't only mean data sets per se, but also, for example, tools, workflows, or research objects. And we think that open data is not only, does not only mean that to make the data accessible, but also reusable. And that's why the data needs to be appropriately described through metadata. And as a data publisher, so why to give for free the data? We think that if we look at this from a public data provider perspective, we think that, of course, public data providers need their data to be used because they need to prove to the funders that their data and the activities where they are investing money are creating some impact on the society.
But is it always possible if you publish open data that you can still track all the use as well?
Well, it might be possible. And what we also do, we think we pay particular attention, for example, to the provenance of the data, because this is a way for us to support the public data provider. So we need to make sure that the data are cited in a proper way. And instead, from a public sector perspective, as Pieter Jan said before, we are working with a set of companies that they do not want to share their data because for them it's clearly an asset and the competitive advantage need to be safeguarded. But what we think is that we need to provide companies the right incentives. And for example, what we have seen that it's working, if you give back companies enriched data, this could be a right incentive. We have an example. We are collaborating with some aqua farms companies, and all the aquaculture producers need to improve the performance of their companies in terms of cost, growth rate, but also as well as they want to be environmental friendly. And to do that, they need to be able to perform a benchmark. But if you want to do a benchmark, you need to know the data of the other companies that, of course, they don't want to share the data. So what do we do in BlueBridge? So we take the data from the companies, we invite them to share the data with us, we anonymize the data, and we return back the anonymized data sets that the companies can use for the benchmark. So for us, this is a simple example, but that proves that providing back enriched data can be the right incentive.
Because if we have to measure impact, and I think for the European Commission that's really important. And Mr. Shepherd, do you already have at the European Commission itself? Do you already have evidence of open data making a real impact, or do you have numbers about that, things like that?
Yeah, well, in our impact assessment, we did some ex-ante evaluation of how much value we would expect to get, and now we're doing an interim evaluation, trying to look back on what we've achieved over the past few years to estimate it. But it is a bit of the spirit of the times. The biggest opposition, because we were dealing with these big public agencies like hydrographic agencies, geological surveys, meteorological services, and they had a particular business model where they want to have a monopoly over the added value services. So they sell the data, but at such a price that nobody can afford it. And this was not because they made any money out of the data. They didn't, but it prevented other people producing the weather forecasts, the geological maps, etc. But we have seen things are moving, things are changing. And strangely enough, the French are some of the most advanced now. Their hydrographic agency has really encouraged this multi-use of data. They can see the advantages of not only using the seabed data for navigation, but for like storm surges, for planning your wind farms, for coastal erosion, and they are becoming some of the most leaders in Europe, which is, surprising for the French. Oh. So, I forgot this was on internet. No, they are very enlightened, I think.
Interesting. You wanted to add something?
I wanted to comment, because sometimes there's the perspective of open data, and you put it open on a server, and everybody can download it. Maybe this is not a correct way to share data. We rather have a shared data methodology in which if somebody would like data, and he says, okay, I want bathymetry data of wind farms, for example, that we can ask operators if they can share it. But of course they will ask, what are you going to do with it? Is it for research purpose or is it for commercial purpose? And the model around that is very important. Second thing, and that's a practical thing, next year there will be some GDPR rules on privacy, for example, meaning that if you publish data somewhere from your customers, you also have to trace what is being done with this data. What is being done with this data? And if you just open it up publicly and somebody downloads the data and is then sharing it additionally to another and another and another, actually you as a data provider need to track that, because if a wind farm operator who is sharing wind data, for example, would say, I want you to clean everything or delete everything, it's your responsibility. So there's also a practical thing about how the methodology of sharing data or open data works.
Good point. Erik, we didn't have you yet. It's very difficult, of course, because we're in a data publishing, or from a perspective of a data publisher, and you're probably the only one who cannot identify as a data publisher over here.
Yeah, indeed.
But if you would be able to think like them.
Yeah. So we did one project for a government, and they also like to invest in open data because they see that there's a lot of innovation possible with open data. They see that they can't afford or they can't innovate everything. So they hope that by offering open data, that there will be a fabric around them that can make cities more smarter, so that entrepreneurs will take use of the data and make more evolved business models. So the economic value of open data can get harvested. So those are the things that we see. A lot of companies want to monetize their data, so they open it for a price. So I haven't seen too many companies yet who really open it without an economic benefit for themselves directly.
I think indeed it depends on what your business looks like. If, let's say, the data is your core of how you make money, it's very difficult, of course, to hand over that data and give away your competitive edge. but it depends indeed on your company, and if you can, let's say, build a community around it and see if you can get more out of it by let's say, the help of the community, that people will start to develop, will start to use your data, and will try to help you move along and say, perhaps I noticed an error there. I think you need to change it. It might be, let's say, the offset for giving away the data. But I indeed think, let's say, governments are in a position to give away the data and hope that they can, let's say, it's like a nurture ground for other companies to build something upon it, but they do not, their competitive edge does not depend on this data. So
this is my watch saying that 15 minutes are over and that we should get into another perspective, into the perspective, of course, of data consumer. And Erik, I will immediately ask you again, like, as a data consumer, like, what does open data mean to you, and are you going to become filthy rich because of open data?
Filthy rich, no, but I think a lot of enterprises are looking at how they can use open data, so that there is a real legit interest in the companies, I at least see. So they're looking for open data to enrich their own data and to make high-level services that they can again sell to their customers. So specifically for OpenSea data, we have been talking to some shipping companies. There's some large shipping companies in Belgium, and they tell that ships of the future will spawn a lot of data. Everything will be monitored, from motor performance generators, the rudders, the currents in the oceans. So they really think that in the future, to become successful, they have to monitor everything that's going on those boats. So for them, it makes a lot of sense that if there is open data available, that they will mix and match, so that they will make more performant boats in the future. So that's definitely a trend that everybody's looking at, what open data is available and how can I make a better service. So that's absolutely what people are looking for.
Yeah. And your business model right now is to just make sure that other people can be helped to reuse open data? So am I correct?
We're in the business of visualizing the data. So there's so many tools out there to analyze the data, but in the end, if that insight stays within a small group, then things don't change. So if you want to engage better with your customers, or if you want to communicate better with other people in your team or other companies, then that story of the data needs to be told. And there's not a lot of tools right now. It's pretty expensive. So we're making a platform to make it easier to communicate with data. So a data visualization storytelling platform. And there's quite a need for that. So a lot of companies are frustrated that they have a big data science team or big business analysts, but the insights don't flow through the whole population of customers or employees, and therefore the change doesn't happen. So the storytelling, which is happening really excellent in a lot of news media in Anglo-Saxon countries, we predict that also will happen in enterprises. And those companies who take their data and make higher level services to companies, they're also interested in open data. So they're really trying to look for those value chains.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I fully support what Erik has just said, that there is interest from the private sector. And we were asking, as BlueBridge is a research project, so we asked ourselves the question, but is there any added value for the private sector? And we launched a call for SMEs, and now the result is that, for example, we are building application for 5 SMEs in different areas. For example, one SME is asked to use marine open data to monitor the impact that climate will have on a species distribution. Another one will use the data to monitor the impact that man-made underwater noise will have on species. So you see, we have seen that there is the interest. So the companies are looking for open data. What you've seen that they are a bit scared to approach this world because they think that it's mainly the research world.
So wait, I will continue a bit on that, because right now your team is actually reusing data from other parties in order to create this
What we are doing, as I was saying before, as we are more a broker, we are providing the users with seamless access to existing data providers, such as Imodnet, but also, as Jan Bart was mentioning before, Copernicus. So we facilitate the usage.
For these 5 different SMEs you were talking about, you're now creating a very specific app to show how they can reuse
They are building the apps with our help.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So we facilitate their access to the data. We provide, of course, some analytics tool to support them, but the SMEs per se are building the applications.
And how easy is it today to reuse all this information and to build analytics tools on top of this information? Can you describe the process a bit like on that?
Well, as I said before, so what we do, I mean, we provide access to the existing data sets that are available through the Imodnet portals or through other data providers from Copernicus. So in these virtual environments that we make available for the company, they have the data sets. They will have some analytics tools already developed, for example, in the research world. But if they want, they can port in this virtual environment their own softwares or their own models. So we are in a position that we have a sort of sharing of knowledge together with the company. And the advantage for them is that they don't have to reinvent the full wheel, because we are already providing some technology to support them. That, of course, for example, we provide also computing resources that they might not have.
And for the data integration, like you did the data integration once on your machine, and that's like all the data is copied to your machine?
Well, we use the web services, and so we access the data in this way, and the company can access easily the data. So we are not reinventing the access. What the added value that in some cases we provide is that we harmonize the data if they need a specific standard. For example, XDMX for the statistical data or NetCDF for the georeference data where they are not available. And these are among the most used services, so the harmonization and data analytics. So that's our way to facilitate their approach to the open data world.
Pieter Jan, if you as a would think like a data consumer, and I think it would be really easy, because I think that you will not just throw your data online, but you will also create some dashboards with this data yourself,
that was
right?
Indeed the idea. If we get, let's say, the data from the vessel, that we create some dashboards on the website to visually appealingly apply it or visualize it on the website. So in some way we're also a data consumer. We get in the data from our vessel, it's our own vessel, but then we will indeed present it on our website in an appealing way. We can also make trends, let's say already compare also with other data. We get, let's say, satellite observations or forecast even, we can compare. But we still need to check how we can, let's say in the time frame, because it's a private project, we do it in our spare time, how much we can develop in our free time. Because the main goal is, of course, to build the vessel, to get the data, and then we can play with it later.
Are you going to link your data up to other data sets as well? Because I can imagine that you need base maps or something, or that you need...
Yeah, indeed, we'll use, let's say, some layers. We already have some conversations with a company called Windy, where we could take, let's say, their layers of... They provide a map onto which you can visualize wind, waves, temperature. And we can put markers on there to show where is the vessel. We can provide a dashboard to upload or to visualize our sensor data. So in that sense, we're both data publisher and data consumer. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So if any one of the data publishers in the audience want to make sure that their data is linked up to them, talk to Pieter Jan afterwards as well.
Talk to me after the presentations, and we can have a chat.
Are there any questions from the audience in the meantime?
So I have a question about publishing the data. Maybe it's something for you, Sara. You said if you publish the data, you want to make sure that users of your data give you the right citations, so cite your name, something like that. So if you go and look at the open source software world, where they're much further, I guess, in sharing application code, you have different types of licenses. So how you license your code or your data and how others can use it. Are there any initiatives that, for example, say, if you use my data and you process it to create new data, so process data that derivates from it, that you need to license it under the same terms or something like that?
Well, I think that this is an hot topic at European level. So I don't think that there is a solution yet. But for example, there was a recent publication from the JRC and Open Science Data Group, something like that, I don't remember exactly, focusing on IPR. And they were highlighting how IPR is different with respect to the data cycle. For example, so if you search for data, you don't have any license or IPR because metadata is free, for example. But if you look at data processing or, for example, to data storage, you need to make sure that you comply with the right license. So I think there are lots of efforts going on this at European level, but I don't think that there is still a solution or a unique solution.
Does that answer your question? Yeah, okay, good. Is there someone else with a question? Okay, then we will we'll continue with Mr. Shepherd. I think that there must be, during the last years, there must be some success stories with open data that was reused, like you already mentioned, like the Meteorological Institute in the UK. Yeah. Like,
in fact, what the Americans do is they're even more open than we are. And they don't put any restrictions on the data, so they don't know how it's being used. They don't know how the data are being used. And we're in a similar sort of position. Alessandro was telling us that recently that their data are being used by Shell, by a lot of companies, but they're not really tracking it. And this gives us a bit of a dilemma, because the more you track it, the more difficult it is to use, and the less people use it. But if you don't know how they're using it, you find it difficult to justify why you're giving it away. So this is quite a hot topic at the moment. But I think we're going to move a bit away from the American. We're going to try to get more information about, without putting restrictions on the use, but to try to get more information. I mean, well, how you use it, but I mean, you have to log into nearly everything now, even Belgian Rail, Facebook, whatever. So, but also to come back to the Fukushima example earlier, because the sea, you have to remember, is not one country holds the data. If you look at the North Sea, there's about 10 countries around it, the Baltic as well. And if something happens, like there could be an oil leak from an offshore platform, you want to know, is the oil going to reach the shore? Is it going to damage a protected area? What other activities are going there? So you need to get data from lots of places, but you need it quickly. You can't go around phoning people up and asking for them. You need to, or getting written permission. You really need to find it quickly. So that's another advantage, is this emergency situations where data can be very useful.
To come back to this, what you described, like whether to add a login or a registration before you can actually use data or not. Don't you think that if you will have no registration at all, and you will have a lot of reuse, that for the successful cases you will just see it?
No, not necessarily. We're not. I mean, the only reason I found out about this Met Office storm surge was because the lady, the researcher's boss knows me and sent me an email and told me. So, and this was, otherwise we wouldn't have known. And maybe they'll write a paper in a journal and we might see it, but they're talking about doing it, but otherwise we wouldn't have known.
Yes, there's also like, there was a mention of the licenses. You also have like some open data licenses that require you to attribute a source, so that if
yeah,
you
they
would
probably do, but you know, for us to get the information back, they will probably write in that this is data from eModnet, but I mean, we don't regularly scan the internet looking for eModnet. Well, maybe we should, but no, it's we don't really know, and
Okay.
this is something we need to really work on.
Okay, thank you. So I would like to we are nearing the end of the panel. So I would like to just have everyone turn by turn, each one on their own, and say like one key takeaway. Would you be able to start, Mr. Jordaens?
As I said before, for me the key takeaway is you have open data, but you also have what I call shared data, which is sharing data in some kind of a partnership with the right environment or methodology in which everybody is happy. And then I'm also sure that companies would open up their data. So.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, maybe it's to follow on what you said. What we need are success stories that we can use to generate even more data. So I think this is what we're looking for you to help us with, maybe to find something new that's coming out of the data.
So we are kicking that off today. Yeah.
I think from our side, from our story, our perspective, it's great that we have eModnet because it's, let's say, a common platform for both data publishers and data consumers. So for us, it's very good to find connections where we can find, let's say, possible clients for our data and how we can even optimize what we generate for those clients. So it's, let's say, a good connection, a good link for both the consumer and the publisher. So that's the key takeaway.
Well, I think that today we have heard about a lot of examples of applications or use cases and things like that. So I think that open data really is an opportunity for companies to set up new business, improve products, and to come back to Alessandro's question before, why do we need you? I think that the answer is that you need the data. So it's not that we need you, but in general the society needs data for the economy.
If you have a look at what's happening at closed data, then it's huge. You know, the sharing and the integration and what's going on there is just huge. And I think it's just the same is going to happen with open data, but it's like 5 or 10 years later. So we just have to wait a bit because there's less economic drive there. So it's coming along, and there's genuine interest from enterprises to do something with it, but it's a bit the chicken and the egg. So first they're working on the closed data, that's growing really, really fast. And I really see the need for enterprises to start using open data because it makes them smarter, it makes them better. So there's going to be a need, and the more need there is, the more the open data community will flourish.
So it's a great step to organize OpenSea-Lab to give that a push in the back. Yeah. Thank you very much, my dear panelists, and I hope to see you at the next event.